Okay, this is Leland Milstein. I'm so sorry for the technical difficulties we were having. Can folks hear me? I think the answer is yes, so I will just start right on over. Um, my apologies for the confusion here. This is the Alliance for Community Trees webcast for Thursday, April 18th. The AC Trees webcast series is a monthly webcast held at the lunch hour. These trainings leverage local successes by amplifying to a larger audience two model organizations, methods, materials, and approaches. Sessions are planned to last no more than 1 hour, with two presenters speaking on the same topic from slightly different perspectives, each for 10 to 15 minutes, followed by 10 to 15 minutes of questions and answers. If any of you who are participating in today's call are landscape architects, please know that most landscape architecture boards or state boards require only a certificate of completion to receive credit for participating in today's session. We at Alliance for Community Trees can provide that to you, so just shoot us an email after the session if you need one of those. Today's webcast is a program of Alliance for Community Trees. We are a national network of local tree planting and care organizations working to make communities cleaner, greener, and healthier with trees. If you're not already a member of Alliance for Community Trees, please consider joining. Today's session is Running a Nonprofit, Administrative Best Practices. Using the right administrative practices can make your organization more effective. Beyond just ensuring legal compliance, smart internal policies set your company on a more sustainable path to success. When good nonprofit leaders manage their organizations responsibly, the result is clear: smoother operations, more efficient program delivery, stronger staff, and deeper community impact. And we're really lucky today to have two fantastic nonprofit leaders here to tell us about some of the programs and systems that they have in place with their organizations that have led them to success. From two different sides of the country, we have Danielle Crumrine from Pittsburgh and Joan Lionetti from Tucson. Very excited to have you both with us today. We're going to kick off with Danielle. Danielle Crumrine has worked in various capacities in the Pittsburgh environmental community over the past 10 years. In addition to her current capacity as the Executive Director of Tree Pittsburgh, where she's been since 2007, Danielle is a leader in the Urban Ecology Collaborative, where she helped to lead such programs as MERGE, Methods to Engage Residents and Grassroots in the Environment, as well as the Green Forum and the first ever Three Rivers Pioneers Conference. Danielle was recently named Top 40 Under 40 Environmental Leader across the state of Pennsylvania by the Pennsylvania Environmental Council, and we were very excited when in 2011 Danielle was elected to the Board of Directors for Alliance for Community Trees. Thanks so much for being with us, Danielle, today. Take it away.
Hi, Leland. Thanks so much. Well, I should start out just by telling you a little bit about Tree Pittsburgh. We're an organization that was started back in 2006 by members of the Pittsburgh Shade Tree Commission, and I was hired in 2007, as Leland mentioned. This is actually my 10th year as an executive director, so hopefully I've learned enough over the years to have some helpful tips to share with you here today. There's a slide there depicting some of our projects at Tree Pittsburgh. And I am trying to forward here, guys. Leland or Sarah, can you help me out forwarding?
Yep, we'll advance the slides for you if it's not working.
Yep, go ahead and move forward then.
I think we're having slight technical difficulties on our side. Hold on one second, we'll get on to
Okay, no problem.
That's a little too far. Our apologies. We'll get this working right. There we go. That's the right slide, right, Danielle?
The one that says all great movements, that's where we should be now.
Okay, we'll go to that one.
Okay. So I put this quote here, all great movements start with two people in a folding table, because I have a feeling that a lot of folks on the call today are similar to me in that I did not go to school to be an executive director. I had no formal training in this. My background is liberal arts, but I was very passionate about the environment. And I got started as a volunteer. I joined the board of directors of an organization back in 2000 and ended up taking over that organization. I was 22 years old at the time. This was, right out of college. So I certainly didn't know what I was getting myself into. However, over the period of, more than a decade now, I feel like between going and getting as much extra education I can at local universities, learning from my peers, that I'm in a pretty good place right now. Forward, please, Leland.
Our apologies. It seems like there are some delays in our clicking.
Okay, go ahead and click through these bullets then for me. All right, so some of the lessons learned, and I'm going to go through each one of these in a little more detail. First off, reaching out to your colleagues to build peer relationships, invest in research and planning, create an organization chart with clear division of labor and job descriptions, maintain regular communications with staff to check in on work plan progress, overall morale, and professional development needs, share your expectations with them, invest in sound financial management, create a culture of creativity, fun, ownership, and strong work ethic, and then finally invest in your image. Next slide, please. So reaching out to colleagues, to me, that's one of the most important things you can do. There's a group of 4 small nonprofits, Tree Pittsburgh included. I put the logos there in a cluster, GTech, Grow Pittsburgh, Like Pittsburgh. We're all relatively young directors. None of us had formal training, but we get together on a regular basis, and we call it the Circle of Trust. And we talk about HR issues. We talk about things, logistical things like what kind of insurance policy do you have? Who's your broker? We've been able to learn a lot from each other and even get some good deals on products and services because we work together. AC Trees, of course, is an invaluable resource. Obviously, you all feel that way because you're on this call today. I feel like there are many other leaders across the nation that I feel comfortable enough to call up on the phone anytime and ask them for assistance. And the Urban Ecology Collaborative is a collaborative of Northeast cities. I believe there's about 8 of us now. We've been going for more than 10 years at this point. I think this is year 11, in fact. And it's a very informal collective, no staff, but we have monthly calls and we get together at least once a year. And again, it's a peer network, and I could call anybody up in any of those cities and ask them for advice. So that's a point that I put at the beginning of this presentation for a purpose. Investing in research. Tree Pittsburgh got started because of a research study that was done on the health of Pittsburgh street trees. An inventory and management plan was put together in 2005 by the Shade Tree Commission, and those commissioners were able to raise money because of that inventory to start the nonprofit. I immediately started investing similarly into research using iTree Streets at the time. It was called Stratum back in 2008. Strategic planning, And it doesn't have to cost you an arm and a leg. I never budgeted more than $10,000 for a strategic plan. I've seen organizations spend $30,000. And if you work with if you tell the consultants what your budget is, say this is what we have, I believe you can get your plan for a much cheaper rate. We put together the city's very first urban forest master plan because I knew that I needed direction as an organization. A strategic plan only takes you so far. We needed to be working towards something much larger than ourselves. So this master plan is a 20-year plan for the entire city of Pittsburgh. And then most recently, we renewed our strategic plan, and we did it in a way that helped us to define our role in the master plan, and it also helped us to align all of our programming with the goals and recommendations of that master plan. And that's what I used to raise money. Next slide, please. This gives you an example. I don't expect you to be able to read all of this, but this is our strategic plan, and you'll notice it's one page. And that's certainly how I like to keep it. There is some backup that goes with this, but I find it extremely helpful to have a plan like this, that when you're going to funders or going to partners, it's right, everything's right there in a dashboard format. And I'm more than happy to share any of these documents with you. Along with the strategic plan, we create a work plan, and I cannot stress enough how important it has been at this organization. And I will mention I just got back from maternity leave. I was gone for a whole quarter. But because I had these work plans in place, I wasn't worried. I wasn't stressed out. Everybody knew what was expected of them. And this directly ties back to our strategic plan. It's divided by quarters, and then it tells you who the responsible person is on staff for those action items. Next slide. Also related to the research and planning, I just wanted to throw these up here to give you an example of some of the research we've done and how powerful these are as advocacy tools, as fundraising tools. So not only investing in the research, but then investing in the mapping or the design work to help communicate the research. Keep going forward. Yeah, the pest and disease chart's a great one. This next two slides, I love these. We're talking about researching photos. This is an old photo of Pittsburgh, and if you look at the picture in the foreground with the arches, and you see all the pollution in the background, and Leland, scroll forward. Here's the same shot today. You can see the building with the arches. You see the convention center. This is where the Partners Conference is going to be this year, actually, in that convention center. This is a great sort of before and after shot of the very polluted, dirty Pittsburgh that a lot of people recognized from 100 years ago. And then here we are today, a city that's growing a reputation for being green, largest LEED certified convention center in the world. So this has been a very powerful tool for me, and it's worth taking the time to look into finding these kinds of photos. Next slide. I had mentioned in the beginning creating an organizational chart and job descriptions. This is an example. It's a rough outline. It's not fully completed, but it gives you a sense of our organizational chart. And you can see executive director at the top. Everyone understands who responds to who works with who, what some of the key responsibility areas are, and I find this very helpful. Next slide. Oh, and job descriptions. I wanted to note I actually hired an HR consultant this year, and again, it does not have to take a lot of money, but I hired a woman who was able to go through all of our job descriptions, tidy them up, make sure that staff was actually doing what was on their job description. And I found that the staff really appreciated that as well. So maintaining regular communication with staff. We hold regular staff meetings. They have an agenda. They have minutes. I hold regular meetings with individual staff members just to make sure everyone is on track with their work plan, see how they're doing just personally. we created an employee handbook, and that might seem really basic, but it not only shows that you're a professional organization, but again, the staff appreciates having a full understanding of what their rights are, what the rules are, what the responsibilities are. I always budget money for professional development, and a lot of your local universities will offer, um, whether it's on fundraising, grant writing, web development, whatever might relate to some of your staff responsibilities. We make sure we budget money. We conduct regular reviews, and guess what? Nobody likes doing this. It's one of my least favorite parts of my job, but it's super important. We sit down at 6 months and 1 year, and then whenever somebody's hired, I have this one pager that my very first boss, she is the person who gave me this idea. She shared with me her expectations. They're written out, and I'm happy to share this with anybody. You can make it your own. And I go through it line by line, and it's like it talks about, here's how I am as a manager, here's what I expect from you. It talks about accountability, being on time, all that kind of stuff. Next slide. Investing in sound financial management. Wow, this, again, one of our greatest duties as executive directors is to be a steward of our funds, right? And we were able, again, through forming relationships with my colleagues, the 4 logos you see there on the right, we were able to get a grant, and we share our CFO. And there's a picture of him, Kevin. We got some great press around this. He almost treats us like he's a consultant, we're his clients. He's truly an employee of ours. We all, as collaborative members, share responsibility. For example, Kevin is actually an employee of Tree Pittsburgh, so I handle payroll and all that kind of stuff. But if you go to the next slide, what he's helped us to accomplish, and some of these things we already had in place, but he certainly has taken it to a new level, developing financial policies and procedures that include strict checks and balances, investing in annual audit and or annual review, depending on the size of your budget, investing in a bookkeeper. I can't stress the importance of that enough. I used to do all the bookkeeping myself, and again, taught myself QuickBooks. Payroll processing, outsource that stuff. Then you're sure that mistakes won't be made. Know your own books inside and out. This is very important. I would never want my board president to call me and ask me a financial question that I can't answer, or at least find the answer very quickly. Same with a funder. Determine your value, a cost of doing business, and charge when you can. Spend a lot of time on your budget. Budget by program, spread operating costs across programs. Let your annual staff retreat inform your budget and include staff in formulating the budget. Again, that helps create that ownership. Invest in business planning. Strive to diversify your income. What we do carries value, and we should be able to make some money off of it. This is an example of what we call the financial scorecard, and Kevin created this for us. We use it across all 4 organizations. Again, I don't expect you to see the numbers, but you get the idea that we have this tool in place that we use with our board that is not so detailed, but we have a budget and finance committee that includes our treasurer and another board member who has financial expertise. We meet on a monthly basis, and we go through reports in a more detailed way. We also provide training to board members so that they actually understand what they're reading. And that's something that Kevin has been able to do for us. Another lesson learned, create a culture of creativity, fun, ownership, and strong work ethic. We have this thing we call Idea of the Week at our staff meeting. No idea is a bad one. And I always say to my staff, okay, you have an idea, go write a 1-pager for me, put a budget together, and then come back to me and we'll talk. Staff outings, we go to a baseball game, we go to happy hours once in a while. I like to include staff in planning when at all possible. And I also try to be the example. Be the first to work, be the last one to leave once in a while. Show up at tree plantings. I don't just sit behind a desk all the time. Invest in your image. This is something that Tree Pittsburgh has been really successful at, and these are just images. We believe hire professional photographers, hire graphic designers. You'd be surprised. You might think, oh, I can't afford that. It's going to be so expensive. But you really would be surprised. There's a lot of young designers and photographers who want to build their portfolio. And the Tree Pittsburgh logo there, the way that came to be, we used to be called Friends of the Pittsburgh Urban Forest. And talk about investing in your image. I knew we needed to rebrand because that was a mouthful. People kept calling us F-Puff, which we didn't like. So we were in the middle of a rebranding process, and we happened to be having a t-shirt design contest. And the image on the right was one of the entries. And it won the contest. It was so popular because we printed it on a t-shirt that I said, why don't we just make that our logo? We tweaked it a little bit, and there we are. So having contests like that was a great way to get some new design images. Next. So finally, just little words of wisdom here. I like to remind leaders of organizations to take care of yourself too. Work-life balance is key to success. And we know when we're well balanced that our team is going to be more balanced and we'll give off that positive energy that they need. And learning to say no. This is really hard. Earlier in my career, this was definitely a challenge for me. But I've also learned that when you say yes too much, that's when you start getting into mission creep. And we really need to stay focused. Create your own boundaries. We all love to plant trees, but work behind the desk is just as important, if not more important. And challenge yourself. Take a year just to focus on being an executive director or a leader, not a program manager necessarily. Talk to your staff about your role and responsibilities and your need to focus at the office. That's my advice to you, and I guess we'll open it up to questions now. I know I really sped through that.
Oh, sorry. What was that, Daniel?
I said I know I talked really fast, but I was looking at the time.
No, that was awesome. Thank you so much. We have several questions queued up already, but just want everyone to know that you can now ask questions by typing them in that questions tab in the control panel that you see on probably the right side of your screen. So type those in and we will start asking them. Danielle, the first question is a pretty basic one that I think a lot of people wonder about and really takes us back to the beginning of any organization. And that is this. So someone writing in saying both our garden club and tree board are looking at nonprofit tax options, but remain a bit confused.
Right.
Common sense tells us to get advice from a professional tax consultant or attorney, but we would enjoy any thoughts or recommendations in this regard. We are very low in tax knowledge and seeking advice where we can. Essentially, this is a question about becoming a nonprofit versus being a local organization.
My first question, I would actually answer that with a question. And that question would be, are you sure you want to be a nonprofit organization? I always warn people against having too many nonprofits in one city. There might be an organization that already exists that would make sense for you to partner with, potentially as a program, and join with them. If you say no, there isn't that opportunity, and you want to move forward, I would recommend, and I'm sorry I don't know where you are, but if there's a university nearby, they often have, whether it's at the business school or the law school, there might be some assistance there to help you get started. There might be a local law firm who's willing to take you on pro bono or at a reduced rate. But honestly, it's not that difficult. I think they actually make a book called Nonprofits for Dummies, and it walks you through the process. It just takes a little time. You need bylaws. You need a board of directors. You need someone who does understand the law behind it to file all the paperwork. And then there you go. You get started.
Excellent, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Another question that we've heard from several people is just, will you all get a copy of this recording? The answer is yes. Um, Another question we saw, and I think a lot of people have this um, question is, they want to create a strategic plan. They don't really, or maybe a quarterly action plan that you described, and they don't really know where to begin. Um, First off, maybe you would let us know, or we can talk privately, if you might be willing to share that plan with some folks who are wondering. But secondly, sort of walk us through what it's like to start out creating a strategic plan.
Sure. And Leland, that might even be a good webinar someday, is just on strategic planning.
Great idea.
But to give you a sense, we're on our third strategic plan now, and the process is pretty similar each time. And what you're doing when you create a strategic plan is you're looking at your mission statement and you're saying, how do we achieve our mission statement in the short term and long term? So when we approach the mission, when we approach our strategic plan, it usually starts out with looking inward and looking at your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and threats, the SWOT analysis that so many of us probably have heard of before. So it's looking internally, it's looking externally. What are the environmental conditions where we are that influence our work, that affect us? Are there other organizations doing similar work to us? So there's an internal, there's an external look. You brainstorm, what do you want to accomplish over the next 3 years? And then you figure out what needs to happen every year in order to accomplish those 3-year goals. And that's the dashboard that you see in the presentation. That's what that is. And then how do you measure whether or not you've succeeded? And you should have ways of measuring, whether it's the number of trees planted, the number of visits to your website, whatever makes sense for your goal. And I'm sure when Joan starts presenting, she'll have something to add to this too. But I can't stress the importance of doing a plan. Otherwise, you're just sort of out to sea, doing whatever feels fun, and maybe you're just simply answering a demand as opposed to thinking about the long-term health of your organization and how you're going to achieve your mission long-term. And you want to hire a consultant for that. I really would stress that too, because if you try to do it internally, and let's say you're the executive director and you say, well, I could lead the process for free, well, then you don't get to participate as much. And you really want to be able to be a full participant in the process.
Great. I think we have probably one last question, and then we'll move on to Joan and we can ask more questions at the end. This one is, in terms of accountability to our communities, funders, stakeholders, and organizations, do you have any tips for tracking grant requirements and deliverables and making sure this process talks to the organization's budget? I guess sort of any systems recommendations to successfully track everything a nonprofit needs to track, because there is so much.
Yeah, there sure is a lot. Well, I guess a few things. One, I'll go back to the work plan. The work plan allows you to track progress, just in terms of how well you're doing in achieving your goals for the year. So that's one that I would say. If you saw the amount of spreadsheets that we have, and I always tell my staff, listen, you need to be able to justify your existence at this organization, and how do you propose you're going to do that? Well, bean counting is one way. So we have lots of spreadsheets where we're tracking by year, number of neighborhoods worked in, number of volunteers, numbers of trees. I'm happy to share any of those spreadsheets with you. We use Google Analytics to track anything related to our website, which is also very helpful. Um, but accountability to funders, when you write your grant, you always have to write your deliverables, right? And you usually have to write how you're going to measure your successes. And what often happens is you write a grant, it gets funded, your grant proposal goes in a file, and you don't look at it again until it's time to write your 6-month report. So what I try to do is keep those proposals pretty near to my desk where I could see them. And when I do check-ins with staff, I revisit them because it's really easy to forget that you promised something. And then when you go to write the report, you say, oh no, I totally forgot that I said I was going to have every teacher I work with fill out a survey. Well, then what do you do? So that would be a recommendation is whatever you write in a grant, make sure you keep it close by and revisit it more than once.
Okay, fantastic. We have some more questions, but we'll hold those till later on in the session because we are about to introduce our next presenter. Straight out of Tucson, direct to us from the great state of Arizona, we have Joan Lionetti, who has been executive director of Tucson Clean and Beautiful since 1987. Joan founded their tree planting and tree care program called Trees for Tucson, and also founded the Arizona Community Forestry Council. She sits on the City of Tucson Landscape Advisory Committee and the City Manager's Clean City Committee. She has received 2 Gold Leaf Awards from the International Society of Arboriculture and numerous recognition awards for environmental leadership, including the Keep American Leadership Award, National Recycling Award, and the Arizona Governor's Award. Joan has been a featured speaker at numerous national, state, and local conferences. She also built a home in Arizona in, I think it's called Cochise County, that is completely off the grid, which is really exciting. Joan, we should tell you, we're particularly proud to have her speak because Joan is a founding member of Alliance for Community Trees. Thanks so much for joining us this afternoon, Joan. Or I guess it's still morning near you, huh?
Thank you very much for inviting us. I say us because BJ, my program director, is sitting next to me to prompt me. So Tucson Clean and Beautiful's mission statement is that we're a nonprofit and our intent is to preserve and improve natural resources and enhance the quality of life in the city of Tucson and eastern Pima County. These goals are achieved through initiating educational and participatory programs implemented with broad citizen support. We are not just Trees for Tucson. We're a number of other programs within the community and address environmental such as waste reduction, recycling, special tree parks. We have 2 commemorative tree parks, as well as 2 memorial tree parks.
Joan, it's a little difficult for us to hear you. If you could just speak up a little bit, that would be great.
Can you hear me better now?
Perfect.
I'm on the phone versus the speaker. What I was saying was we cover kind of a broad base within the Tucson metropolitan area, which includes eastern Pima County. And our focus is really on working from the grassroots up instead of the hierarchy down. So we're very well directed with neighborhoods, civic organizations. We have a major university here with 40,000 students, and we have a 38,000 student community college. So we have incredible resources available to us for volunteer work. The structure of our organization basically has evolved. When I started, I was the only employee. I would do the bookkeeping, the board minutes, the program development. At that point, we only had one program, and it was basically looking at litter cleanup. At that time, Tucson Clean and Beautiful was a part of Keep America Beautiful. We have not been a part of Keep America Beautiful since 1993. One of the basis of, I think, our success is to be constantly looking at change and to develop our management systems as we have grown and as we have added programs. And some of those applications that apply to managing internal affairs has been to really define organizational and internal goals. What is our overall organizational goal? And as Danielle mentioned, you certainly can get off path by not really looking at saying no with a capital N and a capital O. And we have been guilty of that, certainly at times. We now have 9 employees and just a bevy of thousands and thousands of volunteers. So we not only have to have internal affair issues, we have to have issues that have practical application to our volunteers, and the fact that one of our programs has over 2,000 volunteers on a sustainable basis. Internally, we look at employee policies and procedures manual. We have a manual that was developed in 1993, and at this particular point, we are re-evaluating all of issues, things that have changed as far as legal, as well as employment requirements that are required to be met. Each one of our positions has a job description, and periodically they're reviewed, and we look at them from the standpoint of how will this employee be able to develop their own job? In other words, put their autograph on the job, which we certainly encourage under creativity and development. We have a health care plan. We have vacation, sick leave, and we have retirement. We provide 5% of each of our employees' salary towards retirement, and they in turn can also contribute to their retirement. The job descriptions when you're hired by Tucson Clean and Beautiful or Trees for Tucson, there is a 120-day probation period, which gives you an opportunity and the organization an opportunity to see if it's going to be a fit. After that time, while you're on the probation program, you are accruing sick time and you are accruing vacation time. After 1 year of working for Tucson Clean and Beautiful, your retirement kicks in. The program divisions, each one has their own budget. Each one has their own line items and accounting systems, so at any point we can sit with each other and discuss what remains in our budget, what have we accomplished according to the budgeting plan, and what we are planning for the following year. This past year we implemented a whistleblower policy. This is basically because of Enron and the fact that Congress requires nonprofits at this particular time under the provisions of the Sarbanes-Oxley Act to have each nonprofit have a whistleblower policy. I suggest that you look into your organization and see if you need to meet those requirements. I think it's a certain amount of a budget. Um, we also this year implemented a policy. We've had a retention policy on documents, but this year also meeting that same requirement, we have implemented a document retention plan, and we've put those documents into categories: legal, administrative, and historic. And then we have determined exactly what documents need to be retained for 10 years and what documents for 5 years and what documents for 3 years. And I really urge you to look at retaining your documents from your programs, because what we have found that there are times where programs that you thought you were developing made a turn, and then years later you can go back to some of them, and they're extremely contemporary. Next slide. Understanding the roles of the board of directors versus the executive director and the staff. We at one time had a president of our board of directors that we thought perhaps we were that the board of directors would be forced into a position of firing a president of the board. It just seemed that there was a total misunderstanding of what the role is between the board, the executive director, and the staff. So I urge you to clearly define what your roles are, and not only define, but make sure that everyone understands what these roles are. We have an annual board orientation. We have a board development book that explains exactly what the role of the board is versus the staff versus the director. Also, policy budget development. A lot of times your policies are implemented and relate to your programs, and the budget really needs clearly definement. And we all need to remember at times that a budget is really a plan. It's not something that you absolutely have to stick to, because forecasting is in many cases very difficult, especially if you're looking at grants. Board member expectations. Each one of your board members is on your board for a different reason, has different expectations. And the organization itself has to make clear what those expectations are in relationship to a commitment to serving on a board of directors and what the requirements are. And we do have our board members sign an agreement of understanding. Conflict of interest agreement. I urge you to be sure that you have each one of your board members sign a conflict of interest agreement. Which can be clearly defined. It does not mean that you cannot hire someone if in a competitive market the person that is on your board is going to provide adequate service at a fair price. But it needs to be transparent. The executive committee. We have an executive committee. We have 20 people on our board of directors. Needless to say, there is not always consensus. And we have an executive committee that includes the president, the vice president, the treasurer, secretary. We have a board management committee chair and a past president serving on the board of directors, but also serving as the executive committee, which gives the executive director an opportunity to discuss issues that may be not be conclusive to discuss at a board meeting until some decisions are made. And at that point, our executive committee makes recommendations to the board, and there is further discussion. But it really expedites action when action is necessary. And it is an excellent support for me personally as executive director. We have several board committees, and we have also committees that are ad hoc committees. We have conducted several national and international conferences and have had special committees for those events. We have an annual meeting every year, and we have a keynote speaker, someone in the community that is in some way directly involved with our organization and our programs and our mission statement. The board also has an annual retreat where the board gets together and discusses policy, discusses programs, changes, and evaluation. The executive committee does a review of the executive director and makes recommendations to the board, whether it be an increase in salary, a change in vacation periods, or whatever. The organization and program advocacy is a very important part of the responsibilities of each one of the board of directors. They're your voice in the community, and they're respected. And that's why when you determine, we have a nominating committee, we have a board management committee, and that includes the nominating committee, and we have them look at where our weaknesses are in having community representation on our board of directors. The organizational chart pretty well determines the direction that we do our planning for. So the organizational chart, of course, is our membership, our board of directors, the executive committee, the executive director, program director, office manager, and our program coordinators. And of course, last but not least, certainly our volunteers. A very strong part of our organization is ongoing community education. As I mentioned, the executive committee meets monthly prior to the board meetings and reviews and advises me and supports my staff on budgets, policies, employee issues. We're right now revising our employee policies and procedure directory, and we have found that there are a lot of things that have changed, both legally and socially within our culture, and so we are addressing an update for our policies and procedures. The staff development and creativity, staff has bi-monthly meetings where we discuss issues and problems. We share each other's success stories. Lots of positive reinforcement for staff. We do brainstorming and help each other. We have no basic hierarchy, even though if the blame is to be placed, I will accept it. However, we all stuff envelopes at times, and we all get recognized. Learning new concepts and emerging issues. We keep our organization on the pulse of the community and kind of take our marching orders from the community, whether it be recycling, commemorative tree parks, children's memorial parks, forestry. We have a major urban forestry program with our two utilities here. We have contracts with both utilities, one since 1993 and one since 2010. We also look at training for our staff, committee participation, and conferences, and learning to plan and implement programs. What is the process? In other words, if you come to me with a new idea, you must come with the whole process. And because I'm going to be the devil's advocate. So that way we kind of sort out and people aren't moved forward with programs and end up being disappointed because something that should have been thought about prior was not discussed or included. As I mentioned, the staff addresses community issues, and we develop many, many community partnerships We feel that that is leveraging community resources and bringing people together. Cross-pollination, I call it. We also have an annual staff retreat, and that retreat is facilitated. And I also participate in it. Next slide. Adapting to external changes. When we look at external changes, we're evaluating sustainability always in all of our programs, the social, environmental, and economic issues involved in developing new programs or addressing situations, concerns, environmental issues in our community. We also look at involving the board and staff in policy and planning. Developing a shared vision that we all buy into, and responding to community issues, again, neighborhood, business, political, and environmental. And we annually chart where our trees are planted, where we're doing cleanups, where we're doing neighborhood projects to ensure that we are responding to the demographic profile of our community. And we are, could you go back a minute? Yeah. And also to focus on, are we within our mission and not, I call them putting warts on, and Danielle calls them creeps. But anyway, you always need to be reminded of your mission. Moving ideas into action, the objectives and goals, what, when, where, measurements. How do we measure what we're doing, our strategies, how are we going to do it, what are our resources. We kind of go through this with every new project or program or event that we're doing as a group. What are our resources, who can we partner with, how do we maximize what the results are, and of course the goals, the tasks and timelines, materials and equipment, the costs, budget, in-kind, finance. I would say each year our budget our cash budget is approximately met by an equal amount in in-kind services. There are many opportunities in the community where you may not get cash, but you may get something of far more value to your program, equipment, various materials. Also controls and performance standards. When we're developing programs, we try to implement controls and performance standards. What are we trying to do? Where is this going to go? Is this going to evolve? Is this event going to evolve into a sustainable program versus a one-time event? Again, evaluation and positive reinforcement for all that have participated in the planning and the development and the implementation of a program. Moving ideas into action further is leadership, partners, and volunteers. I one time chose someone who had volunteered to be a recycling coordinator for a committee, a large community committee that we were putting together. And unfortunately, the person had a passion for what we asked him to do, but he did not have a clue how to do it other than to use drill sergeant tactics. And so I had to figure out a very diplomatic way to remove somebody who was passionate but had no idea of implementation or working with large groups of people. So you need to be sure that the job fits the person. We do a lot of collaboration politically with council members, with the mayor's office, as well as with the Board of Supervisors, and leadership within our university and institutions throughout our community. The buy-in is usually a benefit to all to be collaborating. great advantage in our new social media, which my staff pushes me forward through. I'm from the old, I want to talk on the telephone, I don't want to look at a Facebook, but all of my staff are state of the art. Developing and facilitating opportunities for community action. This is kind of making our staff aware that don't get stuck in a rut. When look at things in a different way and break down your paradigms, because there are so many opportunities for our organization to be able to create programs and to be a support system for other organizations and other programs that are already in existence, reinforcing what we're all doing for our community. What we're basically working towards is modifying behavior through participation. So always maximize your participation, include people. And many times people don't volunteer until they're asked. And when they're asked, some of our best volunteers have come through recruitment. And so in closing, I'd like to quote General Colin Powell: and endeavors succeed or fail because of the people involved. Only by attracting the best people will you accomplish great deeds. And I thank you very much. And I am blessed. I am surrounded by the best people.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Joan. And knowing that, knowing several of your staff members, it's true, you are surrounded by great people, and that makes a huge difference. We are going to take just a couple quick questions so that we can wrap up in not too late. Coming straight out of the question line here through the online tab, which I will remind folks, you can just type your question in and we will answer it. Here's a quick one. What are your thoughts on symposiums promoting urban forestry? Have you ever been involved in creating that in your city? And was it successful for strengthening your organization's position within the city? Did you all hear that?
No.
Oh, okay. There was a question about whether you had participated in symposia about urban forestry in your city and whether that has been an effective way to help position your organization.
Yes, yes, we have. As a matter of fact, we have taken leadership in 98 and 2000 and 2001. We chaired a Hot Topics Cool Solutions with the Forest Service and the Department of Energy in Washington and many leaders out here in our community. And yes, it did position our urban forestry program in the community eyes.
And can you tell us a little bit more? You talked about your staff development and helping to foster creativity in your staff. Can you tell us a little bit more about the regular meetings that you have, and with a staff of 8 people, how it sort of works with the chain of command? As in,
well, basically, our program director he puts our agenda together for our staff meetings, and then we have discussion. And if there are new ideas, because usually our staff is very much out in the field, and when they're out in the field, they become far more aware of what some of the issues are. And if, for instance, I don't know if our audience is familiar with the issue in the west of buffalo grass, but it was planted for cattle, and it has become an invasive species, particularly in Arizona. And so people have to learn how to recognize buffalo grass, and that you simply can't use weed killer to get rid of it because it's going to come back. It has to be dug up. So if our staff is out there, they're seeing areas that are covered with buffalo grass. So they would bring back this topic to when we have our staff meeting and discuss, you know, how do we increase the volunteer base for buffalo grass. It's not exactly a fun thing to do on a weekend, especially when you have to use all sorts of picks to get it out of the earth by the structured roots that are extremely invasive.
And then
So
that's great. I have one last question for you, and that's just about working with your board. I thought that was a very important point you made about sort of clearly setting the roles of the board of directors and how they interact and work with the executive director and the organization staff. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
yes, what we've clearly defined in our board of directors manual is clearly defined the roles of what each person is. That the executive director is over staff. The board of directors is over the executive director. In other words, I respond to the executive committee and the board of directors, and staff responds to me, because we at which I think I reflected upon briefly, we at one time had a president of our board of directors who was coming in and telling staff, giving staff assignments, and there was a great deal of confusion and issues going on because of the fact that staff didn't understand who they were supposed to be reporting to. And so all of those clarifications have to be not just when a new board member comes on board or is anticipated to be nominated. Two of the board of directors and myself meet and have lunch with this person and discuss the responsibilities of coming on the board. And then, as I mentioned, they sign an agreement. Then each year there is an orientation. There is one of our board meetings that we require the board manager to do an orientation, not just for the new members, but as well for members that have been on the board for a number of years, just to ensure that there is an understanding of what the roles are.
Fantastic. That is a great idea. And thank you for sharing how these policies have really translated into results on the field, both with your management and with engagement of the public. I'm sure we have a few more questions, but we're going to wrap it up there. If anyone has other questions, please feel free to email them to us, and we will do our best to get them answered by Joan and Danielle. I want to say a big thank you to our two presenters this afternoon, Danielle Crumrine and Joan Lionetti. It's wonderful to hear about how these systems and policies that you've put in place are improving the impact and results of your organization. A lot of people have asked. The answer is yes. This presentation will be available for you to watch in the future. The presentations, the recording, and a related resource list will be available in about 1 week for anybody who answers the survey that is going to pop up at the close of the session. So please just take a few minutes to answer that. It will help us be sure that we are preparing programs and topics for the webinar that meet your needs. With that, a thank you to our presenters and to everyone who listened in today. We hope that you'll come to our next webcast, and thank you for all that you're doing to make your community cleaner and greener and healthier with trees. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you.